Namaskar. Welcome to Indian Political History, Episode 9. In the last episode, we explored how Harappa was discovered. Today, we dive into the civilization itself, its religion, society, political life, beliefs, and mysteries surrounding its decline. We will look at seals, figurines, skeletal evidence, urban planning, and the long debates involving Vedic references, invasion theories, and archaeological revisions. This episode brings together all major findings to help us understand how the Harappans lived, worshipped, organized their cities, and how their culture eventually faded. Let us begin our journey into the world of the Harappans. Introduction. This presentation examines Harappan culture through archaeological discoveries at Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, Kalibangan, Amri, Kot Diji, and Lothal, covering urban planning, citadels, burials, seals, figurines, and distinctive material culture across 2900 to 1700 BC. We study the twin capitals theory of Harappa Mohenjo-Daro proposed by Professor Piggott, critiques by scholars, concepts of provincial capitals, political organization, and comparisons with Shaka Kushana and Mughal British administrative parallels. We analyze Wheeler's Aryan invasion hypothesis, Rig Vedic references to Indra as fort destroyer, counter evidence, skeletal finds, murder interpretations, environmental stress, and multi causal decline models. Topics include lingas, yonis, horn deity seals, absence of temples, milling of Shishna Deva, Aryan non-Aryan worship distinctions, Rig Vedic semantics, and cultural mobility. We explore Amri, Kotdiji, Kalibangan layers, Harappan fabric, D, early pottery, C14 dates, and continuity into the Jhukar culture. We review horse evidence debates, Lothal terracotta figures, Onagar interpretations, stray finds at Surkatoda, classical references, and limits of identification. To synthesize archaeology, linguistics, Vedic texts, cultural parallels, and excavation reports into a comprehensive understanding of Harappan civilization and its legacy. Debate on Harappan capitals and scholarly views. The idea of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro were twin capitals of extensive state comes from Professor Piggott, who argued they were 350 miles apart but linked by a mass of fresh evidence. He stated that both had citadels and thus were provincial capitals of a large empire. Scholars pointed out that no firm evidence exists to support twin capitals, and Indian archaeology coins provincial capital only recently, raising the question of which was the central capital. Piggott relied on historical parallels such as Shakas, Kushanas ruling from Taxila, Peshawar in the north, and Mathura Mutra in the south over one state. Very little is known about Kushana administration, and Mathura may only have been a provincial headquarter, not a second capital. If Mathura qualifies as twin capital, then Mughal and British rule had several quintuplets, weakening the argument. Uniform script spread over India-Afghanistan suggests administrative unity but does not confirm political dual capital governance. Administrative uniformity, priest-king theory, and critiques. The uniformity of material culture, including script resembling Ashokan edicts spread across vast regions, suggests one political authority may have ruled from one capital. Script rigidity may indicate only chanting of Vedic hymns rather than spoken language, showing scribes at the end of Harappa possibly wrote without understanding. A single administration ruling over 1,000 years and a half million square miles seem unlikely, considering Indian history's frequent political fragmentation. Harappan society was once thought to be ruled by a priest king under divine sanction, by force over a conquered populace, alien and enslaved. Sir Mortimer Wheeler noted that a common culture need not imply political unity. Sir Leonard Woolley also revised his early views. Critics stress that grand assumptions based on Western Asiatic analogies may misinterpret or may misrepresent Harappan political organization. Fortified capitals, decline indicators, and citadel explanation. Harappa and Mohenjo-daro may have been capitals of rival states. Elaborate citadels were meant to protect against certain enemy attacks, similar to later Hindu capitals like Devagiri or Kalinjar. Degeneration at later Mohenjo-daro levels indicates exhaustion of resources due to constant warfare with neighbors. The citadel at Mohenjo-daro and Harappa may reflect organized defense. Sir Mortimer Wheeler described narrow lanes 5 to 10 feet wide, forcing invaders into tight fronts. Houses opened to side lanes rather than main streets. Windows seldom looked outside, suggesting defensive conscious planning. These structural oddities may represent defense measures forcing enemy soldiers to split up inside congested lanes. Each block could function as a mini citadel, ensuring internal security during conflicts. Conquered population, pre-Harappan levels, and Court Diji findings. Scholars discussed whether Harappans ruled an alien people. In 1931, N.G. Majumdar discovered pre-Harappan sites like Amri with four phases, including mud brick and irregular stone structures. Excavations at Kot Diji, Kalibangan, and Ghaggar sites revealed pre-Harappan levels and Harappan fabric tea pottery, indicating cultural layering. Mackay's deep dig at Mohenjo-daro uncovered non-Harappan pottery in early layers, proving that an earlier cultural presence was there. Trial boring at Mohenjo-daro showed 13 feet of waterlogged deposits till unexposed, supporting long occupation. Radiocarbon C14 dating showed Kot Diji existed as a developed city in 2838 BC, only 25 miles from Harappa, indicating parallel development. Scholars conclude Harappan civilization was largely self-sufficient and essentially Indian, with no temples in earliest phases but no evidence of foreign origin. Dating, decline, and attempts to explain Harappan end. During excavations at Harappa, Sir Mortimer Wheeler discovered brick-lined structures, and Mohenjo-daro, another discovery, was used as an aid to conjecturing the end of Harappan civilization. Harappan chronology was fixed by comparing with Mesopotamian dates 2400 to 1700 BC, giving an overall lifespan of nearly 800 years. Subsequent C14 dates, sampled from 1960s to 1970s, revised Harappan chronology. Mohenjo-daro has been dated 2900 to 2500 BC, having an early phase, and Harappa earlier still, though evidence varies. Mohenjo-daro showed 13 feet of waterlogged deposits indicating long, continuous habitation. Some scholars claimed Harappan decline resulted from isolation from other cultural developments, but evidence remained inconclusive. Wheeler introduced the idea that Aryans destroyed Harappa based partly on Rigvedic references to storming walled cities, but admitted it was conjecture. Scholars noted that no single explanation, floods, invasion, or isolation, fully accounts for Harappan decline. Aryan invasion theory, Indra, and changing scholarly opinions. Rigvedic references describe Indra as the fort destroyer, leading early scholars to accuse him of destroying Harappan citadels, though evidence is circumstantial. Although Wheeler wrote, on circumstantial evidence Indra stands accused, he later admitted such conclusions may be unsupported by solid proof. Wheeler speculated a hill tribe may have attacked and enfeebled Mohenjo-daro, but he stressed this lacked evidence and remained only a suggestion. Professor Piggott correlated selected Indra hymns with archaeological data and concluded Aryans destroyed Harappa, quoting Wheeler's earlier view. Wheeler wrote, "Who were the destroyers? We shall not know," acknowledging that neither archaeology nor Vedic passages provided certainty. Scholars emphasize that hostile Rigvedic descriptions cannot automatically be mapped into Harappan sites without corroboration. Environmental pressures, internal decay, or socio-economic weakening may also have contributed. Sir Leonard Woolley and Rigvedic support for Harappan destruction. Sir Leonard Woolley stated decisively, without any mental reservation, that the end of Harappa is certain even if its origin is unknown. Woolley supported 1500 BC as the date of Harappan fall, based on Indian literary sources and seals found in Kassite graves at Ur. He claimed Aryans, after hard fighting, overthrew the walled cities, citing Puranic and Rigvedic descriptions. The Rig Veda describes Indra as the fort destroyer, who rends forts as age consumes a garment, and kindled fire burnt up all their weapons, interpreted as destruction of Harappan sites. Uli called Rig Veda the epic of destruction of one of the great cultures of ancient world. Uli argued the conquest of northwest India must have taken only a few years because it was well organized land with walled cities. Scholars found his assumption rest of the country too easy to overturn, to be highly stretched and historically improbable. Critics of Aryan theory and archaeological re-evaluation. Critics argued that Uli's use of Rigved as literal historical evidence strained probabilities, since poetic descriptions cannot conclusively identify Harappan destruction. Archaeologists noted that Harappan culture was urban, while early Aryans were pastoral, equating Indra's battles with Harappan decline oversimplifies cultural timelines. Excavations at Harappa and Mohenjo-daro found no consistent destruction layers, contradicting theories of violent Aryan invasion. Scholars highlighted that correlating literary imagery with archaeological strata is methodologically weak without stratified remains. Findings indicate multiple interacting causes: declining trade, river shifts, resource exhaustion, and urban overextension. Later excavations in the 1950s and 60s suggested gradual decline rather than abrupt destruction, supported by uneven occupation levels. Researchers argue Harappan's collapse must be explained through a composite model involving ecological, economic, and regional political pressures, not a single Aryan destroyer. Evidence for lingas, temples, and Harappan religious practices. Stone pieces identified as lingas were recovered from Mohenjo-Daro. If similar objects existed elsewhere, they are unreported. Many small clay balls found at several sites were identified as sling missiles. Stone rings earlier identified as yonis were likely sockets for wooden pillars. A seal showing a horned figure surrounded by animals has only one specimen. If it represented a cult god, more would exist since motifs were usually repeated in Harappan culture. One major feature of Harappa is the absence of temples, although cult worship typically demands a sanctuary. The epithet appears in Rigved and is translated by Sayana as a brahmachari, incontinent person. Yaksha interprets it as unchaste or lustful, fitting hymns better than phallus worshippers. H. D. Velankar noted Vedic Aryans offered sacrifice before food and drink, whereas non Aryans indulged in enjoyment first, calling it Abhoga and Udadhi, Strapa and Shishna Deva. Deva in Rigved means object of high regard, not object of physical worship, countering claims that Rigved supports Harappan Linga worship. Vedic passages, Griffith's translation, and archaeological correlations. R.T.H. Griffith's Rigved, quoted by Professor Velankar, includes lines such as this prayer to thee the Ashwins hath been uttered. Grant us your aid, O heroes, now or later. This passage, though cited in Harappan debate, originates in hymns unrelated to archaeological layers. Picard drew connections between Vedic verses and Harappan decline, using terms like Dasa and Dasayu as representing enemy peoples, but the parallels are conjectural. The Rig Veda contains pleas: O Indra, you smote the serpent, you release the waters, and O Indra, aid us slay our foes, quoted in support of invasion theories. Words like Dasa and Dasayu, originally neutral, later became slave, robber, or enemy, complicating interpretation of hymns as historical evidence. Verses such as Indra shattered 99 cities were adapted by archaeologists like Wheeler to argue Harappan cities were fortified enemies, but no matching destruction layers confirm this. Scholars emphasize that archaeological chronologies and poetic Vedic symbolism cannot be easily aligned without stratified proof. Reassessment of Aryan invasion and linguistic evidence. In later editions, Wheeler admitted that though earlier he linked Harappan end to Aryan invaders, this was without emphasis because there is no positive evidence. Earlier texts placed Harappan collapse around 1500 BC, coinciding with alleged Aryan arrival. In the third edition, the advance of Aryans is shifted to 17th century BC, with Harappan decline pushed to 1700 BC for no stronger reason than updated chronological expectations. Dasa and Dasayu originally meant enemy from the root das, to bear ill will, later shifting to slave, robber, or foreign peoples, seen also in words like Slavu, which means glorious, and Celtic volos or volos, means foreigner. Linguistic evolution shows that interpreting Rig-Vedic terms literally as historical enemies of Harappa is methodologically weak. Scholars argue that large-scale massacre or foreign invasion cannot be asserted without stratified archaeological proof. Modern analysis suggests Harappan decline was gradual and multi-causal rather than caused by sudden Aryan aggression. Skeletal evidence and reassessment of the violent end theory. Evidence first found that Mr. Mackay, later used by Wheeler and Piggott, includes 13 adult males, females, one child in room 74 of House 5, HR area, section B, lying in varied altitudes with bracelets, rings, and beards. 6 skeletons, including a child, were found in Lane 4 between houses 18 and 33 VS area. Another skeleton was discovered in Dead Man Lane, HR area, section A. These skeletons are from a late phase, disputed in significance, and do not represent methodological burial. Found in Block 10A, a group of 9 skeletons in contoured postures with 2 elephant tusks. Mackay saw them as a family fleeing with belongings before being slaughtered. In Block 8A, DK area, G section, a well-room stairway yielded 4 skeletons, 2 lying on stairs where they died in vain endeavor to escape. Mackay concluded these 4 were almost certainly murdered, proven by bones lying on brick pavement and skulls on sediment pits in active use. Limits of skeletal evidence and transition to Jhukar culture. If all persons were murdered simultaneously, the total reaches 33 people killed by unknown persons, negligible for a city of 25,000. Harappa yields no comparable skeleton evidence. Claims that Vedic Aryans massacred Mohenjo-Daro rely on 39 skeletons, making the phrase tragedy of 4 deaths seem inadequate as proof. At Amri and Chanhudaro, Harappan culture was succeeded by Jhukar culture without break. Significance of Jhukar culture is important when discussing Mohenjo-Daro. Increasing Indian scholarship suggests Harappan's culture was itself partly Vedic. The Olchins note that Indo-European speaking impetus may have contributed around 2150 BC. Research in Greece and Central Asia links early Minoan ware Europeans to similar dates, hinting a wider Indo-European dispersal. M. Kunte placed earliest Rigveda at 4000 BC. Winter Kant suggested Vedas composed 2500 to 500 BC. Max Muller proposed 1500 to 1200 BC, though unproven by archaeology. Harappans used copper and bronze, not iron, and iron absence aligns with Bronze Age. Context before 1000 BC iron expansion. Horse controversy, lothal evidence, and final interpretation. Scholars debated horse presence. Some deny its existence. John Marshall, Baini Prasad, Vats, and Hiranor argued possibility of Proto-Indic horses. Others, including Mackay, Wheeler, Piggott, and J.C. George, disagreed. A terracotta figure from Lothal, termed miniature Mohenjo-daro, was identified by D. N. Sankhalia as a horse-like animal, though more recent excavations show it resembles an onager or wild ass. Sankhalia stated one horse figure at Surkatoda is unstratified. Later, three terracotta horses were found in 1959 to 60 at Lothal, but identification remains disputed. Herodotus describes Indians as Xerxes' army in 486 to 465 BC, riding horses and asses. This may indicate ancient continuity from Harappan traditions. Evidence may show use of asses and onagers, fulfilling transport needs and hinting at mobility networks in 5th century BC India. Because decisive archaeological evidence is lacking, scholars warn against linking Vedic people to Harappan destruction. It's safer to examine Harappan impact on later Indian civilization than indulged in blended conjectures of facts, fancies, and theories. Sources: this presentation is based extensively on archaeological reports, interpretations from Sir Mortimer Wheeler, especially his works on Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and Aryan invasion hypothesis. Important textual evidence come from S. Piggott's Prehistoric India in 1950, his interpretations of twin capitals, and his correlations between Rig-Vedic passages and archaeological data. Key excavation findings are taken from E. J. H. Mackay's further excavations at Mohenjo-daro, which was published Harappa 1946, including detailed accounts of skeleton groups, artifacts, and urban structures. Interpretations of Harappan religious terminology and Vedic linguistic parallels rely on H. D. Velankar, Sayana's commentaries, and Yaksha's Nirukta. Cultural and chronological analysis reference Bridget and Raymond Olchin's The Birth of an Indian Civilization, published in 1968, including discussions on Indo-European links around 2150 BC. Chronological debates include insights from Max Muller, M. M. Kunte, and Winter Kant regarding Rig-Vedic dating, as well as C14 analysis and excavations dated 1959 to 60. Additional scholarly perspectives are drawn from Sir Leonard Woolley's writings on Kassite graves, Indra symbolism, and his views on the fall of Harappan civilization. This brings us to the end of episode 9. Today we saw that Harappan culture was far more complex than a simple rise and fall narrative. Their religion, social organization, artistic expression, and decline all reveal a civilization shaped by multiple forces: environmental, cultural, and economic. The Harappans left behind ideas, symbols, and practices that continued into later Indian traditions. In the next episode, we move further along the timeline of India's political history and uncover the next chapter in this long journey. Thank you for watching. See you in episode 10. Dhanyabad.